Temporal relocation, oozy doozy. Wait a minute, are you kidding me? These guys can figure out time travel and I barely passed pre-algebra in the 10th grade? Anyway, this is how the story goes. Meet Claudette, popularly known as CJ, and her best friend Sebastian. By best friend, you know the guy who obviously likes her and she wants absolutely nothing to do with? Yep, Sebastian and CJ were on a mission to do the impossible, something that was obviously a hair scratcher for Einstein, who didn't seem to have a lot of hair to begin with. Temporal relocation, known to most dummies as time travel. They believed this was their ticket to Morehouse and MIT, and a way out of their environment, an environment filled with crime and murder. It was time. After much calibration and setups, they tried their first test run on the 27th of June, 2019. The anticipation was exhilarating. These kids really thought they had figured out time travel. If there was ever a man to do so, it would have been the man who could barely speak to the shorties, and he only wrote a book about it. But nothing was going to stop these two brilliant black kids from making a name for themselves, beyond what they already knew. And time plus persistence equaled. There they went, into an interdimensional wormhole. They really cracked the code. Oh my goodness. They arrived on the 26th of June, 2019. They had never been more excited in their lives. They could not hold back their joy, asking everyone they met what day it was, because this was the day the Lord had made. This man was obviously waiting on his paycheck, because he wanted nothing to do with this. But here is where everything began to take a turn for the worse. Now remember, this was the 27th of June 2019. They were currently living the 26th all over again. The goal was very simple. Don't change any major events that affects the time-space continuum. But CJ couldn't help herself. They previously had a tussle with CJ's ex-boyfriend, Jared, which didn't end well. And the only reason why CJ was saved was because her brother came to her rescue and Jared had to skedaddle. But CJ wasn't satisfied. She couldn't let go. She wanted to relive the best day of her life by making Jared stay worse, and she absolutely succeeded. Jared got into an accident which completely destabilized her. She couldn't even help if she wanted to. The wormhole was closing and the time to go back to the present was now. Sebastian was fuming. He understood the implications of what they had built. Time travel wasn't something to be messed with, but CJ wasn't having it. As she said,
"Why are you so serious, Sebastian? Lighten up for once."
Relax. Seriously? Only if CJ knew what was in store for her future. Now while we watch the second part of this movie, let's try to answer this question. Is time fixed or malleable? The famously known bodega was robbed. The bodega frequently visited by CJ and Sebastian after school. Now the incident happened so quickly, we only saw the aftermath of the police chase that ended with a gunshot victim. The gunshot victim was CJ's brother Calvin. Wrong place, wrong time. CJ was completely disturbed and broken. She had already lost a father, only God knows what took him, and now a brother. She was so heartbroken, she completely forgot she had a time machine. It is only through her mother's words of consolation she realized, for the first time in her natural-born life, this is something she could actually change. She had to go back in time and save her brother. This wasn't going to be easy, and she couldn't do it alone. She needed the help of her trusted friend Sebastian. Sebastian did not agree to this adventure. He was totally against it, but looking into CJ's dreamy eyes, at least that's what he saw, he decided to go ahead, control time and be totally intentional about it. CJ could barely control her own emotions, but let's forget about that. They endeavored. Here's how the plan goes. We arrive in time, get to Calvin as soon as possible, convince him of his impending doom, and avert his death. Easy peasy. This is not how it went down. CJ and Sebastian did not even get to Calvin. They got to the implications of the effect of the cause of their earlier time travel. They had no idea the elasticity of time and how time bends to its will. By the time they were done dealing with Jared, Calvin had already been shot. The first try was an obvious and potent failure. They had to change the plan. They decided to go with the domino effect. We don't have to get to Calvin. We can get to the incident that got to Calvin. Stop the robbery. Once again, they arrived in time. The robbery happened at 5:35 p.m. The 911 call was made at 5:36 p.m. Immediately after the jump, CJ made a call to the police as they waited outside the bodega for the police to arrive. But the police never came. CJ wanted to save her brother so bad, she ended up taking matters into her own hands. She alerted the store clerk of the impending incident. But once again, something went wrong. This time the wrong person died. Sebastian looked as he was being erased in time because his former self was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. But at least CJ got what she wanted. Her brother was alive and kicking, but she lost her best friend. Somehow, no matter how much she tried to change the past, the future was almost always filled with doom. Maybe there was someone she could consult in the multiverse. Now, instead of Calvin, she had to go back to save Sebastian and Calvin. When will people learn? Saving one was a problem, but let's get to. Maybe the force will be with us. Once again, she needed to replace Sebastian's mind, and there was only one person to reach, Eduardo. Now Eduardo has been the one person in her corner, the one guy she always knew was interested and never gave him a chance. Actually, including Sebastian, that's two. She does have a knack of keeping good men at a considerable distance. Let's not get into the psychology of why. But Eduardo was super excited. Oh my god. Time travel. Are you kidding me? That's exactly what I said, Eduardo. But Calvin and CJ were more focused on pressing life issues. You know, like death. Eduardo was able to create a time splice in order to access a previous past where CJ had been before and Sebastian was alive. But before CJ made that jump, Eduardo was sure to use this opportunity to make sure CJ understood how much he was into her. This time it might have worked until Calvin came through sucking out all the fun. Calvin was hopeful CJ could do this. He said, "See you yesterday." The movie title, by the way, in case you were wondering. It worked. Sebastian was confused, but it worked. CJ was aware of the times, but Sebastian was completely lost. They were not in sync. Sebastian was in tune with an old plan, and CJ was living in a different timeline. One last hurrah. This time, they were going back to where the incident happened. CJ tried, stubbornly and consistently, to convince Calvin about his death. She even showed him his obituary, but Calvin thought the whole thing was a prank, which is kind of a little silly thinking about it. Maybe let's not try to die first before wondering if this is a prank, but no. Calvin was having the time of his life while the police arrived looking for the gang who robbed the bodega. They did pass by earlier, but nobody thought to stop them on account that their lives were in danger. Really? The police arrived, and Calvin really thought he was living his best life because he spilled the tea on knowing that the bodega was robbed, which the only way he could have known that is if he was involved. C'est la vie. He saw Sebastian die right in front of his eyes and decided to give his life away to save his, which is kind of how it happened to begin with. The circle of life. I kinda get it now. CJ was in total distress, but she had to jump back again, this time with Sebastian. Sebastian wanted to know why their concrete plan was changed last minute. It took a little yelling and screaming, but Sebastian had to find out he's literally a dead man walking. Oh no, Sebastian exclaimed. We're done. No more games. We have to let this go. And CJ couldn't agree more. That's easy. Really, Sebastian? You actually believe that? Have you met CJ? Like, how are you two even best friends? CJ was certain in her resolve. Maybe this time I'll get it right and save everyone. And there she went, running through the halls of time, not knowing where time would take her.